Hey folks, welcome to the channel. Today we're going to start a new build, a K-bar. But not only are we starting one K-bar, not two K-bars, we're going to do 3 K-bars. So I got some Marines that were interested, totally different, totally separate contacts from a couple of Marines that wanted K-bars. One guy wanted one that was a bit smaller, and the other two want full-size K-bars. So this is going to be a K-bar build. I've never done one, so we're going to make 3. Let's get to it.
All 3 of these K-bars are going to be copper damascus. So the first thing I got to do is make the damascus for the cladding. Here I'm using alternating layers of 1095 and 15N20 steel. I'm starting this billet with 31 layers. We're going to cut and restack it to add some layers later. I'm welding up the seams, then it's going in the forge to heat up. Now we're setting the welds in the press. Like always, I do 3 heats of just setting the weld, then I'll start to draw it out. You'll see that I'm pressing on the corners. That's because when I welded the edges of the billet, I think I got it a little skewed, so I'm trying to fix that. Now that it's all nice and forge welded, I'm squaring up the sides, getting ready to draw this out. I'm only going to be cutting this in 3, so I don't need to draw it out that much. This will end up with 93 layers, which is kind of a medium layer count, because I want it to be nice and bold. You'll see that my process is just alternating heats between the drawing dies and the flattening dies. That's pretty much how things work. Now the last heat, just flattening this thing out, remove all the bumps from the drawing dies, and then we're going to do one final heat just to square it up nice and flat before we chop it up. I've already cut these up on the bandsaw, ground the mating surfaces, and now we're welding them up to go right back into the forge. First, a little dip in kerosene just so it seeps into the edges. It'll burn off and burn off any oxygen with it. And now more of the same, setting the forge weld and then drawing it out. We're going to be cutting it into 3 again, but we're not going to be doing a restack. We're going to be doing something different with each of those. Remember, I'm going to be using this as cladding with some other stock that's 1.5 inches wide, so that's why I'm narrowing this down. Some people ask me why I have 2 sets of drawing dies, the really aggressive round ones and then these flatter ones. I like these less aggressive ones because they leave the steel relatively flat. The really aggressive ones put a lot of big dents in the steel and you got to correct those later. But those certainly have their uses and you'll see coming up. I'm almost done with the billet as it is. I'm stretching it out and then I'm going to cut it up into 3. The first third I'm going to use for that small K-bar. It's going to be the cladding for both sides. The other 2 pieces are each going to be the cladding of one other K-bar. The last K-bar I'm not going to use damascus for. Here's the first of the 3 pieces. I'm using the aggressive dies here to draw this one out because I don't want to add any width. This piece is going to get stretched out long enough that we can divide it into two, and it's going to become ladder damascus for the cladding of the small K-bar. Now that I've got the billet all flattened out, the way ladder damascus works is you cut grooves in the steel, and then you're going to go and flatten those out, and that will bring the underlying layers up to the surface. In this heat, I'm on to one of the other two pieces. This one I'm using my special dies to make wave damascus. There's a picture in the corner here of what these dies actually look like. This is a similar process to ladder damascus, except I'm pressing in grooves, so then I'm going to grind off the high spots, and that'll expose our layers underneath.
So I've got all the metal for my 3 billets all ready. One thing I wanted to remind folks, because I made this mistake, I was thinking, I wanted my center to be a little thicker, so I had 1095 in the center, and I was just going to stack some thin 15N20. And then, good thing I didn't weld this up yesterday, because when I went to bed, I'm realizing, that would be stupid, because remember, you're not going to get this up into forge welding temps, so these 3 layers would never stick together. You have to have a copper between every single layer. That's what's adhering your layers together. So we cannot do those two. It has to be just the single layer of 1095. So that's what we're going to be going to. This one is 15N20 on the outside, so there's no Damascus in this one technically. This one is the wave Damascus on the outside. Let's remove, like I said, remove those. Okay, so that's going to be that billet. And the smaller one, because this is only a 5-inch knife, this has the ladder Damascus on the outside. All right, let's weld these up and we'll get them in the forge. So after a half-hour welding, I got these all welded up. It's not pretty, but there they are. You got to make sure you get all of these seams welded up. Let's get them in the forge.
Now that the billet is up to temperature, I'm giving it some good hard presses to fuse the layers together. You'll notice that the temperature of the billet is much less than before. We just need to draw it out to the length and thickness that we want. This is an important step. With the aggressive rounding dies, I'm going to put some deep valleys, and that's going to give us that heartbeat-like pattern in the copper. I wanted to make sure my billets were long enough for these blades, so I started to forge in the tang. You'll see in a minute, I really didn't need to do this. After doing this process on all 3 cu-mai billets, I thought I was done, let them anneal. Here I'm grinding them down just to check the edges.
So here are the 3 billets all forged out, but there's a problem. They're just too thick. After grinding off the sides, I'm just noticing that they're way too thick, and even if I tried to grind them, I will have ground down all of the cladding, which is no good. So, unfortunately, I'm going to have to take these back to the forge and thin them out about twice as much, just so that I get the thickness that I need, and they're not too thick. They're way too thick right now. So, unfortunately, back to the forge, which means I got to weld all the edges again. Let's go do it.
That was one issue here, doing the double layers of copper on each side. You just can't grind it down that much. I'm slightly worried about making the core too thin, but we'll see how it goes.
Okay, so here we are all reforged. I went and take the edge off one side, and you can see now quite a bit thinner. Definitely what I want here. I've also just taken one side down and etched so you can see the pattern. Hopefully you can see that a little bit. This is the small one, the 5-inch K-bar, 5-inch blade, and this is a ladder pattern. This one is going to be the full-size K-bar. This is with the wave damascus pattern, which you can see here. It's not quite as pronounced up on this end of the billet, but that's okay because that's mostly where the tang's going to be. But right here it looks pretty cool if you guys can see that. And then this one is the 15N20 core. Also a good thickness. So I think that's it for this episode, guys. Next time we're going to put some profile on these, start to turn them into a knife. Thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you on the next one.